So just to start with a pretty broad question, what was important for you to express on the panel today regarding concussions?
Just the nature of my sport. I mean, the fact that I was a MLS MVP and I'm on a panel with Brian Westbrook, Keith Primo, Jimmy Nelson, guys that play football and hockey. And I think the reality is that while football gets the headlines and hockey's right behind them, soccer has the numbers for kids under the age of 15. And I think it's actually more valuable for me to talk about concussions than it is a football guy, because they've already got the notoriety, but no one's talking about the soccer injury.
Okay, so you talked about kids playing soccer, and I know that was a really common theme amongst everybody up there, was really starting with the community and the grassroots and starting early. How about you talk a little bit about that and how we can educate the community?
Well, education has proven to me that culture change comes after education. And for one, if you're more educated, you're going to make more educated decisions. And I look at an example to that is cigarettes. We all know smoking tobacco causes some bad things for your health. There are going to be people that smoke cigarettes, but the reality is that once we were educated on what the problem was of smoking cigarettes, more educated decisions. So my theory is, it's not a genius theory, is that let's educate our 7, 8, 9-year-olds, our parents, our trainers. So then when they are my age playing a professional sport, they realize, I don't know, this doesn't seem right. So I think our education will create culture change, and I think that's very important.
Okay. Another thing you mentioned, and I thought was a great analogy, was your analogy about Little League and this strict pitch count, 30 pitches and you have a 3-day rest. How about you talk about a little bit about what we could do maybe in soccer to implement something along those lines?
Well, it's just, I use the Little League rule of 65 pitches, you have to sit out 3 to 4 days. And I find that ironic because we are more concerned about a rotator cuff or an elbow than we are about a kid's brain. There are no rules against the amount of head balls or training football with your helmet on and hits. And I think at some point, while our awareness is very high right now, it's a white hot issue to be quite frank, the problem is that what do we really do? What do we really do? The fact that our kids can head the ball 1,000 times a week, but you can only throw 65 pitches every 3-4 days in Little League, something wrong with that.
A lot of the guys talk about up there, and I'm sure it is very similar to soccer, is the fact that a lot of times it comes down to the player. And in MLS, you got the best competitors in the world, and they know what it means if they say, well, I'm having some concussion symptoms. Well, that means maybe you're gonna have to sit out a week, sit out a month, sit out a year. So how do we get the players to be more open and honest by explaining their symptoms?
They talk to me. I mean, they talk to someone who's got permanent brain damage. They listen to my story and why my decision to maybe keep playing, or I shouldn't say my decision because it was a collective decision with the team trainers and myself. What it costs you the rest of your life. You're limited for the rest of your life. And I think when athletes hear that, of course, there's still going to be athletes that risk it. There's still athletes that hop in a boxing ring. There's still martial arts people. So obviously people are still going to do what they love and still put their body at risk. But the fact is that the majority of people, when they're well educated on the injury, they're going to make the right decision. What everyone forgets, though, is when you are concussed, you're not all there. And so the fact is that it can't just be on the player's shoulders. It can't just be on the trainer and the coach. It has to be a collective decision. And there are teammates that played with me that will still reach out to me and say their biggest regret is that when I got punched in the face in my game on August 30th, and I dealt with the next 6-7 weeks, that they didn't tell me to sit down.
Thank you. So one last question for you. Where do you think the issue of concussions is going, specifically to the MLS or other soccer leagues that you know of? How's the league approaching it, and how teams are individually approaching it?
We now have a concussion protocol in MLS, something that I fought very hard for with our union as well, to get the owners to respond in the league, and they've done that. They've addressed the issue. Have we completely fixed the issue of concussion rehab and recognition? No, we haven't, but the fact that we've stepped into the right direction, all leagues have. The NBA has a concussion protocol now, and people think that there's no concussions in the NBA. With regards to soccer, you can change our sport. You can have a head count when you're little. You can have certain things when you're little and still not lose the fundamentals in the game. And I think of all the sports, soccer can be addressed the right way for concussion education and still keep the sport the way it is. And then when they're older, then heading becomes part of the game. And I think that's the way it's going to end up going.